Burlesque by Kamari333. Chapter 4. Little Messages. Lust remembered Red saying he came to the strip club every night, so Lust started coming every night. To his delight, Red was true to his word and apparently his habits. Although the time of his arrival varied, Red was always sitting at his favorite table by midnight, booze in one hand and condiment in the other. If he wasn't already sitting there when Lust arrived, Lust killed time with Grilby, one way or another. It wasn't long before spending the evenings with Red was routine, an inevitability which Lust looked forward to far more than he was willing to admit, even, if not especially, to himself. Lust spent his every waking hour away from Red thinking of what jokes he would throw out upon their next meeting. He had quickly found that, while Red could appreciate just about any joke, aside from a pun, the darker humor was what got his face to light up, his laugh to take on that deep, penetrating timbre. So did dirty jokes, for that matter. Lust was much better at dirty jokes. Of course, that only made the weekends that much worse. Without work, Lust found himself at a loss for how to pass the time until sunset. He tried hanging out with his brother, but Papyrus was so busy with Metaton and his own job that he could only fit Lust in on Sundays, leaving Lust alone at the end of the week. It was a month after the cell phone incident, on another horrible, empty Saturday. Lust groaned softly, blinking in the dim light let in through the window of his apartment, creeping around the edges of the curtains. There had originally been blinds, but Lust had never been a fan of them. They made the room feel distant, cold, so he had replaced them with thick cotton curtains in a lovely shade of royal purple, a housewarming gift from his brother. As he sat up, rubbing his clavicle absently as if to wipe away the itching burn that had awoken him, Lust contemplated the fabric. Maybe he should get another color. A deep blue, perhaps? Or maybe red? Lust shook his head, sliding gracefully out of bed. He was up, and he wasn't going to get back to sleep anytime soon, as much as he would have liked to, so the next best thing was a blistering hot shower. Then he would get the hell out of there. He didn't want to stay in this empty place any longer than he had to. Night couldn't fall soon enough. The music changed, the lights tinted to another color, and Dance wondered again why it was he kept coming back here. It wasn't like he could drink. His brother would never let him hear the end of it if he came home sloshed again. He wasn't going onto the dance floor, no matter how Grilby might push or how many of his favorite songs Blukey mixed. He didn't really want to talk to anyone other than the bartender, who was busy working more often than not since the place was a popular dance club frequented by monsters and humans alike. The elemental in question waved at him from the other end of the bar, a crackling pop expressing his apology for being so busy, following after a virgin mojito which he slid down the bar into Dance's hands. Dance gave him his best lazy smile before curling around the drink that was decidedly not alcoholic and draining it. Stars what he wouldn't give for a bottle of dandelion wine. But no, he had promised no more drinking, and Dance never broke a promise if he could help it. With a world-weary sigh, Dance flicked the now empty glass away from him, leaning on the bar top, hiding his face in his arms. With his hood up as it was, he was completely hidden from view, but he still felt exposed. The music called to him, called for him, but he refused, as always, to answer. He didn't want anyone hearing the music that played in his metaphorical and literal heart. 2 more pointless drinks and a song change later, and Dance was ready to go home and sleep the rest of the day away. He started to push himself back from the bar, but froze when he saw the briefest glimpse of lavender light. He turned his head, eyes searching the dense crowd of bodies. Surely he was just imagining things, like every other time. No way that guy would be. But there he was. The chiropractor Dance hadn't been able to get out of his mind was right there, weaving his way elegantly through the throng of people, that seductive smile on his face, his thumbs hooked in the pockets of his vest. His eyes were glowing faintly with a purple light, pulsing in time with the beat of the music that his barely covered hips swayed along to as he moved. And he was headed this way. Quick, stop staring! Dance turned back around, his spine going rigid as he focused all his attention on the half-melted ice in his previously abandoned glass. He felt more than saw the other skeleton take a seat to his left, the gentle clack of bone settling on wood telling him that the other was leaning on the bar top on his elbows. Grilby, seeing the new arrival, made his way over, popping and hissing a polite greeting along with an inquiry as to what his newest patron would like. Dance was just about to translate when he noticed the brief flash of understanding in the chiropractor's eyes, the tug on his grin, the slight tilt of his skull, all of which indicated that a translation was unnecessary. "A dirty martini, shaken, straight up." The skeleton grinned wider, his eyelights flashing behind half-lidded sockets as he shifted his position to lean closer to the elemental. "Unless you have a specialty you want to show me. I love trying new things. And being tried." He winked, watching with undisguised delight as the bartender red shifted to a rosy pink color, his fire flaring a full inch higher than usual. The chiropractor laughed, light and silky and full, covering his teeth with a flare of his delicate fingers. Grilby, after composing himself, turned around and started to mix the requested drink. The chiropractor twisted to the side, letting his eyelights roam the room before they locked on Dance, making unmistakable eye contact. His face brightened with recognition. Dance forced his grin to stay casual, his features to remain calm, even as he could hear his own internal screaming. "Didn't think I'd see you in a place like this, Doc," he said, proud of how even he managed to keep his voice. "Didn't think I'd see you either, sweetie," Lust replied, his expression becoming thoughtful. "I'm sorry I missed you when you came in to pay. I had a patient at the time. How's your back feel?" Dance waved it off, shifting his weight to sit facing Lust properly. "Ever better. Don't think I'll be coming back in anytime soon." Lust smiled, the seductive quality muting to reveal a frail happiness, coupled with the tiniest shred of pride. "Glad to hear it. That's one less weight on my shoulders." Grilby set Lust's strength down in front of him. Lust grinned back up at the bartender, winking his appreciation, before carefully scooping it up with one hand and taking a sip. Dance watched, transfixed by the artistry with which Lust moved, the delicate motions of his joints, the fluidity of his spine. Lust looked back at him out of the corner of his sockets, his gaze seeming to pierce through every mask Dance had to hide behind. His eyes were captivating, the ever-present lavender glow barely visible behind the pristine white. Dance felt the magic rise to his face as he busied himself with his empty glass. "So, you come here often?" He winced at the idiocy of the question. What did that even matter? Why can't he make small talk for shit? Lust shook his head. "First time. I have time to kill on Saturdays until 9, so I've been going around looking for something to do, you know?" Lust chuckled, his smile faltering for the briefest moment before returning. "So far, nothing seems to keep me occupied long." He took another sip of his drink, those enchanting eyelights hazed over, staring unseeingly into the distance. Dance swallowed, an idea forming in his mind. "Hey, Grillbs, 2 orders of Berg, and put it on my tab." He looked at Lust, his lazy smile pulled on full to hide his nervousness. "I know whenever something's eating me, I wind down with some good food and bad laughs." Was that too much? Was he pushing too hard? Maybe he was crossing a line, or being too forward, or... Well, you certainly have good taste, then. Lust finished off his drink, looking at Dance over the rim of his glass, the light from his sockets shimmering and distorting in the reflection of the curved surface. Dance felt his soul thrum, but he kept his casual posture and grin firmly in place. "I'd like to think so. Just let me know if I start to chew your ear off." Lust chuckled, setting his glass down as Grilby brought over the food. "You don't need to bite back your words with me." To Dance's delight, he didn't. Lust couldn't believe his luck. Dance was an oasis in the desert, meeting him pun for pun with an ease that took him by surprise. That idle smile, those half-lidded eye sockets, the casual slouch of his spine, the way he angled his arm without thinking about it. Dance looked for all the world like he didn't have a single care, while still maintaining a certain poise wholly unique to him. Lust's eyes occasionally wandered to gaze at Dance's midriff, hidden completely by the vibrant azure hoodie he wore. He remembered the feeling of Dance's magic, how calming and yet exhilarating it had been, even with the gloves muting the sensation. Lust's hands would begin to itch with a gentle fire, and he would force himself to look back at Dance's face, reinforcing his focus as he tried to ignore the heat building in his marrow. Thankfully, Dance didn't notice, or if he did, he chose to ignore it. Lust was just about to respond to a pun Dance made when the alarm on his phone went off. He jumped, fishing it from his pocket and turning it off. "Gotta hand it to you. You sure know how to make time fly by." He looked back up at Dance, a part of him hesitant to leave, even as the other part of him screamed that it was time to go see Red. "You think if I come back next week, I'll bump into you?" Dance blinked at him, his eyes searching for something. "Maybe. Guess you'll have to come back to find out." Lust grinned. "Guess I will." With one last wave goodbye, Lust left the dance club, thinking maybe the weekends wouldn't be so bad anymore. Red slumped in his seat at the bar, a ridiculous grin on his face. The air tasted richer, like he was being smothered by the scent of sweat and alcohol and mustard and smoke. He snickered. Nobody had any idea how stoned he was. And it was hilarious. His own personal joke that nobody got but him. A joke he indulged in every Saturday, a joke that just got funnier each time. He hummed, enjoying his mustard with a fervor, the tang so much more intense and delightfully biting. However, something was missing. Red couldn't quite place what it was, but lately, Saturdays hadn't been quite as fun as they used to be. Yes, he still got delightfully high, and yes, he still got to enjoy a few hours freed from his dysphoria, but over the past month, there was a nagging sense that something was lacking in his experience, something that needed to be fixed. At first, he thought it was as simple as stronger kush, but that hadn't been it. He had smoked stronger shit than ever today, and significantly more of it to boot, but still he wasn't satisfied. Next, he thought maybe more booze or mustard would do the trick, but given how much he had drunk already, that hadn't been it either. Red hadn't been feeling quite himself in general, actually. Throughout the day, he would suddenly feel listless, and while that wasn't something he usually worried about, he was a lazy guy, it was a different kind of listlessness than he was used to. He would see a flash of a certain color, or catch a whiff of a certain scent, or hear a phrase that he was certain had no significance to him whatsoever, and his soul would stop short, dropping him into brooding placidity. It was absolutely maddening. He couldn't for the life of him figure out why either, only that he would feel a sudden ache, not unlike when he had overexerted himself and drained his magical reserves. That feeling of emptiness which words were not equipped to describe. It infuriated him, and it left him wanting something. The only time he could truly escape from it was when... "Knock knock," Lust said in his usual cheerful voice, sitting down across from Red. And suddenly, Red felt complete again, as though a switch had been flipped. He smirked, putting his bottle down. "Who's there?" "Let's Scar." "Let's Scar who?" "Well, if you insist." Red blinked, his muddled mind needing a moment to process the joke. Then it clicked, and he hid his face in his arms as he sniggered breathlessly. He could feel Lust's smug, triumphant grin, picturing the look on his face in his mind's eye, a look he saw every time the other monster managed to make him laugh. It should have irritated him, but on Lust it was... endearing? There was no malice behind it, only a sense of pride and accomplishment. It was a look that made Red want to laugh more. But it wasn't the expression Red liked the best on the other monster. However, Red knew how to get that most desired response. He pulled his head back up, blinking to focus his sight so he could see Lust as more than a blur. "Aight, here's one I bet you never heard for. What'd the green grape say to the purple grape?" Lust scratched delicately at his mandible, making a show about thinking it over. I don't know. What?" Red smirked. "Breathe, stupid." Lust froze, then doubled over the table, pounding the top as he wheezed. Red snickered. That's how the little shit should look, breathless and flustered and happy as all get out. Red crossed his arms, leaning back in his chair. He watched as Lust composed himself, straightening his posture as he clutched his teeth with one hand. Lust looked back at Red, the faint shimmer of amethyst light behind the whites of his eyelights. "You know, I don't think I've ever eaten a grape," Lust admitted. "Seriously?" Red picked the bottle of bourbon back up, knocking back a shot's worth. "You ain't missing much. Tiny has little fruit balls," he explained, feeling strangely talkative, probably due to the drugs and drink, holding his thumb and index fingers at the approximate distance from each other to indicate the size. "About that big, growing in a big-ass bundle on a vine. Went to this thing called a vineyard with my bro a few years back where there was a fuck ton of the little fuckers." Red clicked his teeth thinking about it. "You want to hear something stupid? Apparently at a wine tasting, you ain't actually supposed to drink the fucking wine." "What? Really?" Lust leaned forward, clearly interested. I heard about those. Fancy gathering where you drink wine and gush over how good it is, right? No offense, but you don't seem the type to like that kind of thing, sweetie.
You'd be right about that, sweetheart.
Red slurred, taking another drink.
Bunch of pretentious pricks nitpicking over the dumbest things. And I swear to Asgore, the fucking jackasses couldn't even fucking taste the goddamn difference between one cup and another.
Red was on a roll now.
Boz and I were there, right? He's looking at the glass like the damn thing's gonna bite him. And I don't know if I want to laugh or steal his drink and knock it back myself. Because all around the room I hear these dumbass humans just repeating words like robust and flavorful and body, usually in that fucking order.
Red took another sip of his drink, looking at Lus briefly to gauge his reaction. Lus' maxilla was glowing a faint purple, his eyes focused and attentive. Red smirked. That was a good look for him, too. Real good.
And all I want to do is get the fuck out of there. But no, Boss insists we stay through the whole fucking tasting, which lasts a good 3 hours. Being in shit company, I of course start putting them away like it's my usual Friday night, which you know, it is. But after a few bottles, I start noticing the humans giving me these strange looks, right? I didn't really give a damn, but Boss got all fidgety and shit, so I go ask one of them butler-looking types what the fuck's wrong with everyone. And he tells me...
Red paused to take another drink, a little riled up now that he was thinking about it.
He tells me I was supposed to spit in the spit bucket. I paid fucking money to go to this damn thing, for fuck's sake. Humans, fucking humans.
Lus broke down into hysterical laughter and Red joined him.
The bright side is, now Boss don't wanna never go back. Small miracles, am I right?
Lus nodded, still snickering. So, is there something you've never had? Something you've always wanted to try? Red thought about it, spinning the bottle in his hand idly.
Ain't never had of ice cream for. Damn Rabbit and I never got along, so it wasn't worth the trouble. Never had any kind of sweets, now I'm thinking about it. Does you count the sweet wine Grobes had round the holidays?
Lus stared at him, eyelids noticeably larger with surprise. You're kidding me! Red snickered.
Nah. Anytime I got a hold of one of them cinnamon bunnies, always gave it to Boz. Worth more that way.
A part of Red cringed at that, at how he had shared something he would usually consider intimate and personal. Sure, it had been commented in passing, but Red wasn't one to share parts of his personal life. He furrowed his brow, wondering why it was that he didn't particularly mind that he had shared it with Lus. Because now that he was thinking about it, he really didn't give two shits if Lus knew or not. And Red was acutely aware that that was very much unlike him. It was probably the result of his intoxication. He would regret it in the morning. Probably. Lus grinned at Red, his voice pulling him back from his contemplations. How about we go get a hold of some sweets right now, then? Red thought about it. A part of him said it was a dumb idea, and his money was better spent on booze, but it was muffled by the heady cushion that was the result of being stoned.
Sure, why the fuck not? Let's go get some fucking sugar.
He pushed himself off the table, snickering at the surprised look on Lus' face.
What? Didn't mean what you said, sweetheart?
Lus flushed a pleasant purple, standing up himself. Just didn't expect you to be up for it. Red laughed.
Fuck yeah, sugar.
He spun on his heels, giggling at the squeak his sneakers made as he did. Squeaky sneakers are the shit. Okay, maybe it was a good thing he was leaving the bar. He might be at his limit. A waitress passed by with a few bottles of whiskey on a tray right in arm's reach. Fuck limits. Red snatched the bottle and chugged it. When it was finally empty, he smashed the bottle on the floor, laughing as he stumbled out of the building, refusing to let the floor, which decided to rock from one side to another, make him fall over. Lus followed after him, a warm source of reassurance at his back. Lus watched with a mixture of amusement and concern as Red stumbled about, laughing like an idiot every few steps he took. After about half a block, Red stumbled, tripping over a crack in the sidewalk and falling face down. Lust rushed over, taking hold of Red's arm and helping him upright. Red shook with laughter, leaning his weight on Lust, gripping his radius with the opposite hand.
Just sees that shit? Ground came out of nowhere.
Lust shook his head. He was relieved that Red was out of the bar. He wasn't sure if it was safe for him to drink anymore, even with his insane level of tolerance. I think it was you who came out of nowhere, sweetie. Red swatted Lust's hand harder than strictly necessary, but not with any ill intent or malice. Lust was used to it. When Red got drunk enough, he would occasionally express his irritation with tiny acts of aggression. A swat on the arm, a punch to the shoulder, a kick to the shin. There was never any violent intent in it, never any desire to hurt. It was almost affectionate. No, don't go seeing things that aren't there. He's just a naturally aggressive person when his inhibitions go down. It means nothing. Lust smirked knowingly at Red, waiting patiently for him to find his footing before letting go. Red continued to lean into Lust's side, hooking his arm over Lust's shoulder as though leaning on a banister or countertop. He snickered even as he tried to scowl.
Fuck yous. I didn't do nothing. Fucking ground attacked me.
He slurred before he couldn't maintain the expression and went back to his amused grin, blinking as though to clear his vision. Lust chuckled, keeping pace with Red as they continued to walk, finding comfort in the casual touch and close proximity. Even if it was only so Red didn't fall over again, Lust was going to enjoy every moment of it. The smooth leather of Red's jacket felt refreshingly cool against him, sliding back and forth against the exposed end of his clavicle. He loved it. Stars, since when did he like leather so much? Lust wore it all the time, but nothing he owned was as soft or cool or smooth as Red's jacket seemed to be. He refused to admit that it had more to do with who was wearing it than the fabric itself. They wandered the streets for a good 10 minutes, looking this way and that, listening for the telltale sound of the ice cream vendor. Lust was about to give up when Red started to quicken his pace, forcing Lust to keep up. Moments later, Lust caught the faintest whisper of a distant jingle, which became progressively louder. A few more blocks, and Lust saw it. The ice cream guy, standing happily under a street lamp, leaning on his cart with his usual smile. However, the ice cream guy that Lust now saw wasn't the one he was familiar with. Unlike the one Lust knew, this one was dressed rather modestly, in a gold shirt and cobalt blue slacks. The bow tie, along with the hooks of his slacks, were accented with large gold stars. Most of him, especially the tufts of fur between his long ears, seemed to glitter in the night. Red's steps slowed, coming to an abrupt halt as he looked the sparkly monster over. Lust remembered how Red said he and the rabbit hadn't gotten along. He carefully pulled away from Red and approached, thumbs hooked in his pockets. He felt a surge of Red's aura and intent against his back, warm and cold at the same time. The rabbit monster smiled wider when Lust approached.
What can I get for you?
Lust looked over the little pictures on the cart, marveling at the diverse selection.
How about 2 classic space creams?
He asked, pointing to the picture. The rabbit monster beamed, looking over Lust's shoulder, presumably at Red, although Lust couldn't be certain without turning around, with a thoughtful, knowing expression.
Coming right up.
He reached inside and after a moment pulled out 2 perfectly scooped cones. The ice cream glittered even more than the monster who offered it to Lust. The colors a swirl of soothing pinks and purples and blues, a romanticized evocation of the universe beyond the sky. Lust quickly pulled out the gold, trading with the monster.
Thanks a lot, sweetie,
he said as he turned to go back to Red.
You're very welcome. And don't forget to read your message.
The rabbit practically sung back, waving goodbye. Lust chuckled. Sure enough, he could feel the texture of paper wrapped around the cones, no doubt hiding a positive, friendly message on the reverse side. He looked up at Red, feeling the intensity and pressure of his intent diminish as he got closer, as if he were controlling it just to keep Lust within its boundaries. Lust smiled at the thought, knowing he was probably just imagining it. Lust offered Red one of the cones. Red reached to take it, his claws brushing against his fingers, sending a jolt of something warm and electric shooting up Lust's arm. He shivered, smiling at Red, who was inspecting the shimmering surface of the ice cream with as much scrutiny as he could muster in his inebriated state. Lust took his old spot at Red's side, letting Red again use him to lean on as they continued to walk, watching him out of the corner of his eye sockets. Red bit into the ice cream. At first his face showed nothing but the gentle buzz he had been expressing all night. Then his jaw shifted, broadening his grin as he swallowed.
Holy shit. Fuck, this is almost as good as mustard. Almost.
Red took another bite, making a soft noise of satisfaction. Les licked idly at the surface of his own ice cream, savoring the sweetness and the chill. He spotted a bench stationed against a fence that enclosed what looked like a park, and guided Red over so they could both sit down. Red kept leaning against Les, which he was more than fine with. He enjoyed the tactile sensation of the smooth leather against his humerus, the close proximity that allowed him to bask in the scent of bourbon and mustard, of cigarette smoke, and... Is that marijuana? How has that gone unnoticed for so long? Les closed his eyes, still looking at the ice cream as he breathed in and out rhythmically. It didn't really matter to him. In fact, it explained some things, like why Red was such a giggler on Saturdays. He wondered if it was safe for Red to be drinking and smoking at the same time, being unfamiliar with the effects of the combination.
The fuck?
Red mumbled, sounding like he was talking with his mouth full. Les looked up. Red had chomped down on the cone and gotten the paper message stuck on one of his teeth. He was delicately pulling it off so he could inspect it.
What's this supposed to mean?
Les chuckled. An ice cream guy leaves a positive message with the ice cream. What's yours say? Red shifted his grip, popping the last bit of cone in his mouth and swallowing, before reading the message aloud.
Someone really cares about ya. Bullshit.
He tossed the paper away, letting it flutter in the air to settle on the ground at his feet. Les eyed his companion. Why is that? Red snickered, throwing his head back and looking up at the night sky.
'Cause I'm a jackass and everyone knows it.
He snickered more.
Knock knock.
Les smiled, taking the change in subject. Who's there?
Kaz.
Kaz who? Les asked, going back to his ice cream, tearing his message off before sucking down the cone.
Nah, I likes the trombone betters.
Red's response was sleepy, murmured into the air as though it were a secret. Then Les felt more pressure on his side. He looked over, and there was Red, slumped into him, completely unconscious. Les felt that gentle warmth fill his soul, watching the monster beside him sink deeper into what looked like a comfortable rest. Red's features softened further, his body relaxing. The strange thing was, his intent to protect never diminished, remaining constant and strong, like a cocoon around them both. Les sighed contentedly, shifting his weight to better accommodate Red's mass, careful not to disturb him. Satisfied that he could maintain the new position for an extended period of time, wanting to enjoy this for as long as possible, he looked down to read the message his ice cream had left him. Someone really cares about you, too. Les looked back at Red, reaching carefully to take hold of his hand. Red's claws curled reflexively around Les' palm, and Les felt that warmth grow stronger inside him. He would wake Red up later. For just a little longer, he would let himself pretend. Bye!